Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB. And it is Thursday night. We got a really fun game going on this evening. I covered that last night. In this video, we're going to be going over my start-sit charts for we have 5 games at noon this weekend, and there's going to be 6 games in the afternoon slate. So I'm just going to cover the 5 games at noon this week. We're going to look at some of the practice reports. We'll look at my start-sit charts, and we'll look at some of the stats and the numbers that I have compiled for these 5 noon games. But for now, I'm gonna hop over into a screen share here. We're gonna look at the fantasyfellowship.com, and we'll start with this Texans and the Browns game. We got good news. Nick Chubb is back. I don't know if he's been activated yet, but he's looking like he's going to play. He's been practicing the last 2 days. I don't think he's had a knee brace on either, so it's a really good sign for Nick Chubb owners to have him back. But first, I think we're just going to look at the practice reports for both teams real quick. Let's just take a look at Houston's side first, because I know David Johnson has not been practicing for 2 straight days. He has the concussion from last week. So, I mean, if he doesn't get anything in tomorrow, he's probably we're going to be not having David Johnson available. So it's going to be a big Duke Johnson opportunity this weekend. So if he's on your waiver wire, check that out. Otherwise, if you've been holding on to Duke Johnson, this is our week. This is our week to get Duke Johnson into the starting lineup. And then on the Cleveland side here, I'm trying to see. It looks like Austin Hooper is going to be back. So if you've been waiting on tight end here, Austin Hooper, full practices the last 2 days. So that's a really good sign. Looks like Jarvis Landry is good to go. Nothing else really too crazy here. We have a few offensive line guys missing, but no one's been ruled out. Kind of a lot of offensive line guys questionable and limited, but I'll monitor that the next couple of days here. But it looks pretty good on Cleveland side. Looking at the start-sit charts, I'm just going to scroll down here and then show you guys the fantasy points allowed to positions here. We got a lot of green matchups here. This one could be a really sneaky high fantasy points day for both teams. So I'm really liking this. The Texans defense, all 4 of these positions are green. And the Cleveland side here, they have 3 out of 4, but nothing too crazy here against the running backs. So with that being said, the Texans allowing just about 20.5 points to the quarterback positions here. The Browns almost 20 points. So we'll like both quarterbacks in this one. On the ground, the Texans are one of the worst teams allowing PPR points here. So you see over about 30.5 PPR points to the running backs. So we're going to like both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in this one. The Texans giving up almost 42 points to the wide receivers here. The Browns just about 44. So both really easy matchups for both teams to take advantage of. And then they're both pretty poor against the tight end as well. So the Texans about 14.5 points here, and the Browns just about 14. And so there's going to be a lot of options in this one. Starting on the Texans side, I think Deshaun Watson, of course, is a quarterback 1. You're looking at Duke Johnson, especially in PPR leagues. Duke Johnson's going to be a RB2, probably a flex play for some of your lineups, but definitely try to get him in if you have been sitting on Duke Johnson, and we do see that David has been ruled out. I think it's going to be a lot of volume for Duke in this one. You're starting Will Fuller. I think Brandon Cooks has entered our good graces, and he's pretty much locked into like a safe wide receiver 3 flex at this point. We did note that the Browns given up about 44 PPR points to receivers. So you love Fuller, you love Brandon Cooks. I do have David Johnson here just with a question mark. If he plays, I'll think about getting in my lineup. But for now, it's all about Duke. And then this tight end situation here. Is it Jordan Akins? He kind of was eased back into the lineup last week. I do want to pull that up here on the opportunity report. Let's get to Houston. So last weekend was Jordan Akins' first game back. He's had ankle and a concussion issue that had, basically lasted for like 2 or 3 games. So it's his first game in action. He sees 22 snaps, but he gets 4 targets, 2 for 19. So even with less snaps, he was the most targeted tight end. So you're probably going to see him probably reach in the 40 to 50% this weekend. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on Jordan Akins. The Texans do have a tough schedule coming up. So I'm thinking this might be the last time that we really look at these Texans players as must starts. So Randall Cobb, if you need someone on a bye week, I could see Randall Cobb being a high floor wide receiver 3 flex. Kenny Stills isn't doing much for us at all. And then Darren Fells, I'm not really interested at all. Don't even bother starting. Don't even look at either of the defenses in this one. And then on the Brown side, I think Baker Mayfield can be a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. We're not going to you probably shouldn't trust him for quarterback 1 leagues. There's probably other guys on the waiver wire that I would like more. And especially with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt now both healthy and ready to roll, we might see a lot more running than we have been seeing the last few games. So Baker Mayfield's just a quarterback 2 for me. Then you got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I have both these guys listed as RB1, 2. I'm assuming since, I mean, Nick Chubb, he should be, I don't know what if they're going to come in and just give him a full amount of snaps right away. But if you have Nick Chubb, you're putting him in your lineup and we're expecting RB1 to RB2 numbers. And then Kareem Hunt, I think Kareem Hunt stays in our lineups as a RB2 flex option. So I'm pretty good with that. And then Jarvis Landry, just because he's like the lone guy to soak up targets here. So I think Landry's a pretty safe wide receiver 3 flex. And then you're looking at Austin Hooper because the tight end position is such a crapshoot. I do think Austin Hooper could be plugged back into our lineups. Before his surgery, he was actually starting to come on. I think he had 3 or 4 straight games of tight end 1 double-digit numbers. So I think definitely with Odell Beckham out of the picture now, you're going to see Landry and Hooper be kind of featured in this offense. We're not looking at Rashard Higgins, Harrison Bryant, David Njoku. I just really don't trust a lot of these pieces here. So I think the Browns, we're going to see a lot of focus on the run game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. We'll see if Baker Mayfield can keep the chains moving with Jarvis Landry. And then you got Austin Hooper to help move it. So I think the Browns might be kind of getting back to their original game plan here, trying to run the ball, hit the short areas of the field, and then maybe take some deep shots with Rashard Higgins or some of the other backup receivers that no one's really paying attention to. So Texans-Browns, it should be a fun game here. I'm going to answer a question real quick in the chat room here. We got Magic Trio. How's it going, man? Thanks for hanging out tonight. Should we trade DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, and Jackson? I'm wondering what Jackson that is. And then Lockett, Eckler, and Gaskin. So that's who we'd be getting. I'm going to make the playoffs, and I need a better RB for the playoffs. I only have Mixon and Taylor. Wide receiver, I have Tyreek, Michael Thomas, Ayuk, Evans, and Brown. So I don't know if that's AJ or Marquise. So let's soak this up. You're trying to get Austin Eckler, which could be a good move here, and then Myles Gaskin. He should be coming back from injury as well. If you're already on track to make the playoffs, I could see this moving out, but I'm not really sure this makes your team that much better because I do think Antonio Gibson could be more involved as the season progresses here. They're just coming off of a bye week, and I mean, if you look at what Gibson's been doing, it's been fine for an RB2. So yeah, thanks for answering the question. So you're trying to get Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, and or you're giving Justin Jackson, and then you're going to be acquiring Lockett, Austin Eckler, and Myles Gaskin. Who are your, who are your other? So you only have Mixon and Taylor here. So you have Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor. You would be adding Eckler and Gaskin. I mean, if you think you can float with Mixon and Taylor until, I'm not sure if Eckler's coming back next week or the week after. I think Gaskins is out probably at least another 2 games. So you're going to be holding on for those guys, and I guess that would put you right at about like week 13. So these guys could potentially be back for the last regular season game of the season. I'm not really sure. Hopkins to Lockett, I like both guys quite a bit. But I guess, I mean, Eckler's going to have more of a ceiling than Gibson would. So it's kind of like if you're not, high on Gibson I don't think Justin Jackson's going to be doing anything. So he's kind of nothing in that trade. So it does make sense to get 3 usable players versus just the 2. So if you have that deal kind of in place and already talked about, I wouldn't mind pulling the trigger on that one, considering you can hold on with Mixon and Jonathan Taylor to kind of hold the fort while you wait for Eckler and Gaskin. So thanks for the question, sir. We're going to be moving on to the next noon game that I have here, Washington football team and the Detroit Lions. Let's take a look at their practice reports first. Washington here. Let's see. So Kyle Allen's definitely out. He's probably out for the rest of the season. Backup receiver here, Dontrell Inman. Inman's a pretty good receiver for them. Looks like he's going to be trending towards playing, so that's a good thing for Alex Smith. And then Antonio Gibson here. Didn't practice on Wednesday. I think that was just more precautionary kind of thing. Just let him get a healthy day in and not take any beatings there. And then a full practice today. So you like to see that. It looks like Antonio Gibson's back on track. And then I guess the rest of the practice chart looks pretty decent here on their side. For Detroit's side, I think we're still missing Kenny Golladay. No practices today and yesterday, so that's a bummer. He's probably not going to play this weekend. Jamal Agnew, backup wide receiver. Quarterback Matt Stafford practicing in full, so it looks like he's going to be good to go. This is a pretty lengthy practice report here. It looks like no one's been ruled out, so this is going to be something to monitor, but their defense is really banged up right now, and it's probably going to be one of those games where we see Matt Stafford have to throw the ball a lot. You can't really run the ball very efficiently against Washington. And especially without Kenny Golladay, we might see Matt Stafford have to hit a lot of short area targets. And this one's probably going to be a pretty ugly offensive day for Detroit. So with that said, let's look at the fantasy points allowed to each position here. The Washington football team defense is playing pretty solid here. They allowed just under 18 points to the quarterbacks, about 20 to the running backs, just under 26. This is first in the league. So this is the lowest amount of wide receiver points allowed in the league, just about 25.8. And then the one spot where they do allow a decent amount of points is going to be the tight end position here. So Washington allows 15.4. That's going to be really good for TJ Hawkinson here. So he's probably the one Detroit Lion that I'm going to feel the most confident about. He's been rolling. I think he's like tight end 3 or 4 on the season. So continue starting TJ Hawkinson for sure. And then on the Lions side here, they do allow a good amount of quarterback points, just under 20. They are the worst team amongst running backs here, allowing 34.5 points. So that's why I really like the matchup this week for Gibson and our guy J.D. McKissic in PPR leagues. They're decent against the receivers and the tight ends, which is just kind of weird. They rank 12th in both these categories. So we'll see what we got here on the start-sit chart. Alex Smith, if you needed help in a Superflex league, he can be used as a quarterback too. We did say the Lions allow about 20 points per game to that position. And then the running back here, Antonio Gibson, we're going to continue to start him as a running back too. He's not going to get a better matchup the rest of the season. So like we said, the Lions allowing the most running back points in a PPR league per game, 34.5. We should see Antonio Gibson be able to get some goal line opportunities and maybe cash in on a few receptions. We love Terry McLaurin in this one, no matter what. He's must start. He doesn't really matter what matchup he's going up against. So we really like Terry McLaurin. And then J.D. McKissic, just because last week when Alex Smith came in the game, we did see, I'm wondering if Antonio Gibson was kind of hurt a little bit with his shoulder, and they just decided to roll with McKissic a little bit more because you see a lot of, the most snap share that McKissic has had all season with 83%, and then just 46 for Gibson. So that's a little strange. So I'm just wondering if they're kind of just taking it easy with him. But we do see J.D. McKissic last week, 14 targets, 9 receptions, 65 yards. He's not going to see 14 targets every game. I'm expecting somewhere in the 6 to 7 to 8 range for a typical week. So he's still going to, be a healthy floor of 5 to 6 catches, I think, in a PPR league. And basically, he caught 65 yards, rushed for 17. That's over 80 yards. So you're probably looking at, for this week, I would assume maybe 5, 6 catches, maybe 50, 60 total yards. So he's a double-digit PPR play for me. So if he's available and you need the help there at running back, I think he could be an interesting option. Think about starting the Washington defense if you need a pinch there too. Logan Thomas, he's been a decent tight end for the most part. He did play 100% of the snaps last weekend. He's still seeing a healthy amount of targets, 6 targets last weekend, only 3 catches for 28 yards. But this is a revenge game for Logan Thomas. He started with Detroit. He's going back for the first time as a Washington football team player. So we should see Logan Thomas try to, get a touchdown or something in this one. And before last weekend, he did catch 2 touchdowns in a row. So I could see Logan Thomas find the end zone in this one. Cam Sims, Steven Sims, Dontrell Inman, we're not interested in any of these backup targets here. On the Lions side, I did have Matt Stafford with a question mark, but I know he was questionable, but it's looking like he's trending towards playing. And for me, he's just a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. I don't know if I trust him in a typical 1 quarterback league. I think he looks best as a quarterback 2 for sure. DeAndre Swift, I think we got to continue starting him as an RB2 flex. He should see some PPR run in this one, as we do expect. There's not going to be a lot of running room for the Lions, whether it's DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson, or Kerryon Johnson. So we might have to see them attack with some short, quick passing game to kind of negate that pass rush. I did have Kenny Golladay here listed as a wide receiver 2 with a question mark, but he's probably not going to play, guys. So I'm going to move him down to this last bench spot here. So assuming Kenny Golladay is out, you love TJ Hawkinson in this one. Like we said, it's the easily the best position that the Washington football team gives up points to. So you love everything that TJ can do for us this week. Because no Kenny Golladay, I'm going to assume Marvin Jones could be used. But be careful with this one. Just because Kenny Golladay is out doesn't mean we're going to see a lot of points from Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, maybe even Marvin Hall. The Washington football team is the number 1 team against wide receivers in PPR, so just under 26 points per game. So if we're looking at Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, maybe Marvin Hall, and another receiver, so I don't really see a guy having that much of a ceiling. Maybe 1 or 2 of them hit low-end double digits here, but it's a bit of a risky play. And it's not really one that I trust. If you had to use one, I would say Marvin Jones. He's caught touchdowns in back-to-back games. Not using the defense here if you needed to get something in PPR leagues, Danny Amendola could be the guy. He did have a pretty decent game last weekend. Let me get up to the Detroit Lions here. I can't remember how many targets he had, but he went with 10 targets, 7 catches, 77 yards. He was the leading target man last weekend. So if you needed someone in a pinch for a guy like Tyreek Hill or Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, any of the guys on bye, Danny Amendola could be used with the hope of a double-digit PPR performance. But not a lot of fun in this Washington and Detroit Lions game. I guess there's a cool thing that's going to happen, though, is former Bronco cornerback Aqib Talib is going to be in the booth calling this game. I'm not sure who he's calling it with, but it's his first, I guess, live commentary on a game. So that's going to be kind of fun to check out when we get to Sunday. Moving on here to the Jaguars and the Green Bay Packers. Let's first hop over to the practice reports. We'll look at Jacksonville. They got a couple of receivers dinged up here. Really lengthy list here, too. So you see DJ Chark not practicing today with an illness. I'm not sure. It's not COVID related, I read. So we'll see if he can go tomorrow. Otherwise, we're monitoring this. If they don't play DJ Chark, we're not going to like a lot of this offense. Anybody else here? Rookie Laviska Shenault Jr., limited practice Wednesday, Thursday. Assuming he gets in another limited tomorrow, he should be good to go. It's a tough matchup, though. The Packers will look at their stats in a bit. They don't allow a lot of receiver points. And then I guess looking at the rest of this here, we do see Gardner Minshew's out. Nothing really else on offense is concerning. Tyler Eifert's practicing in full. And everything else looks fine there. On the Green Bay side, they're getting healthier. Jair Alexander, though, he's been in concussion protocol the last 2 days. We'll see if he can come through tomorrow. But David Bakhtiari practices in full. He's been out the last couple games, and now he is practicing in full this week. So Green Bay's offensive line is going to be able to get a pretty good boost in this one. You're liking Aaron Jones for sure. Kevin King, we'll see if he can go as a backup corner there. Darius Shepard here did not practice. He's like their third or fourth string receiver. Robert Tonyan did pop up on the injury report today with an ankle injury, so we'll monitor him. But otherwise, there's nothing too concerning here. I think the Packers are a pretty simple offense to evaluate. Let's just look at the fantasy points allowed by position here. The Jaguars, they are in the bottom of pretty much every category here. You see about 22.5 points to the quarterbacks, so you love Aaron Rodgers, about 28.1 to the running backs, so we love Aaron Jones. We'll think about Jamal Williams. The receivers, about 38 points here. We might see Devontae Adams get that himself. And then the Jaguars against the tight end. This was actually going to be a good spot for Robert Tonyan here, about 15.5 points here. And then you see on the Green Bay side, they're actually a top 10 defense against quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends. The one spot that they do allow PPR points to is going to be the running back room, 33.5. So I think we still like James Robinson in our lineup. So let's take a look at this Jaguars and the Packers lineup here. We got a shout out here to Andrew Bauer. That's my brother. Alan Lazard's likely to play. I have him listed here as a flex, so we'll talk about him in a little bit. But on the Jaguars side of things, I do have Jake Luton here listed as a quarterback too in Superflex leagues. No one should trust him in a standard, one quarterback league. But for Superflex, there's opportunity where they get some garbage time, and especially if DJ Chark goes, I think that's going to be a decent 12 to 14 point play. The one guy that I feel the most confident about on the Jaguars side is going to be James Robinson, just because he's been doing it all season. And this is a great matchup. It's a great matchup for running backs. So we should see James Robinson be the focal point of this offense, get featured. He had 25 carries last week. So that should be, if the Jaguars were going to try to win this game, James Robinson's going to need 25 to 30 carries, 25 to 30 touches in this one. So I love James Robinson. DJ Chark, we did just see him on the injury report with an illness today. So we'll have to monitor his practice reports tomorrow. We'll see what's going on with him on Saturday. So it's going to be a little bit of a fluid situation there. But, man, outside of James Robinson, I really don't feel confident in any of our Jaguars pieces. You're not starting the defense, never. Then you got Keelan Cole, Laviska Shenault, Chris Conley, Tyler Eifert, Chris Thompson. Like, what do you do with these guys? It all feels so kind of risky. But we did see on the Packers side of the ball, the defense side of the ball here, Jair Alexander hasn't practiced all week. You got Kevin King getting some limited practices in. So Kevin King might be their number one corner. Will Redmond here, one of their backup corners, is questionable. So they're a little bit dinged up in the secondary right now. So we'll see if some of these receivers can come into play. If we needed to play one, Keelan Cole, maybe. I don't feel confident in Laviska with the hamstring right now. Chris Conley. I think I'm keeping all my Jaguars on the bench unless they're named James Robinson, and we'll see about DJ Chark. On the Packers side of things, this one's really simple. Don't get cute. Just start your studs. We know Aaron Rodgers is a stud right now. Aaron Jones is going to be returning back to his, top 5 running back form. Davante Adams has been amazing lately, and I expect him to keep this thing going on here. We got Andrew in the chat room saying he loves Davante Adams to go for 100+ yards. Yeah, he might have that by halftime, man. We'll see if Davante can continue. He's probably not going to be a high volume day for him. I would expect them to try to get things, rolling on the ground. This is a get the offense right kind of game because we haven't seen the Packers offense fully healthy really since like week 2. I'm trying to think, against the Detroit Lions when Aaron Jones just kind of ran all over them. They did pull Davante at halftime because of his hamstring injury. So we really haven't seen the full Packers offense with Jones, Adams, Tanyan, Jamal Williams, Allen Lazard. It's been a while since we've seen it. So this might be a kind of get everybody their touches kind of day. So Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Davante Adams, these guys are locks in our lineup. If you are needing wide receiver help, I do think Allen Lazard, he almost played last week, so I think he's more ready to go than people think. And he's been practicing with the team for the last few weeks. I don't know if they've activated him yet. I'll have to watch for that. But he should be playing this weekend. If you needed the help at wide receiver 3 flex, I think he could be worth a shot there. We don't really like the Jaguars' defense at all. So it might be a day where Rodgers spreads the ball around and tries to get Lazard back in rhythm here. And because of the nature of the game, I think Green Bay is 13.5-point favorites. This might be a Jamal Williams game. If you think about what he was doing before Aaron Jones came back, we thought Jamal Williams was looking really good. He was an RB1 basically. So if this game kind of gets out of hand here, they give Jamal Williams some more snaps at the back end of the half. It could be a spot where he's a running back too, maybe gets a touchdown, something like that. I think you can start the Packers defense going up against Jake Luton in a second career start. The offense is just not really inspiring, so we could use the Packers defense. Marquez Valdes-Scantling caught the 2 touchdowns last weekend. I don't know if we trust him at all, but if you needed a pinch, I guess he could be like the most risky high reward play that you could probably pick. Jay Sternberger, nothing to see there, but we did have a question in the chat room I want to get to. We got Jenna ER Nurse. Thanks for hanging out. So what do we got here? 2 questions for my PPR league. Edmonds or Duke Johnson, and then Jerry Jeudy or Justin Jefferson. These are good options to be picking from. So I did see on the Cardinals side of the ball, Kenyon Drake, he has gotten 2 straight days of limited practice in, which is making me a little bit more nervous for the Cardinals running game here. Let's see here. Where's Kenyon Drake? So back-to-back limited days of practice here. I'm assuming if he gets another limited or a full day in tomorrow, they're going to let Kenyon Drake play. So we really have to monitor that situation. I mean, if Kenyon Drake plays, I'm playing Duke Johnson all day. And it's likely that our guy David Johnson's not going to play. Got the concussion symptoms here. Back-to-back days of not practicing. So I think for the first part of the question, I'm going to lean with Duke Johnson and then just monitor Kenyon Drake the rest of the day here. Who do the Cardinals end up playing? The Cardinals, where are they on my list? I can't remember here. Going up against the Bills. So, I mean, if it would be a good matchup for Chase Edmonds if Kenyon Drake can't go. But for now, I'm going to lean towards Duke in this one just because it looks more likely that David Johnson's not going to play. And then you got Jerry Jeudy, Higgins, or Jefferson. So Higgins, T. Higgins has a really fun matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jerry Jeudy going up against the Raiders, and Justin Jefferson, I think that's Monday night against the Bears. So I think I'm most confident in saying no Justin Jefferson just because it's a tough matchup. The Bears are the 3rd best team against the wide receivers, just under 28 PPR points there. So let's go look for the Steelers going up with Higgins here. So the Steelers, everyone knows the Steelers have a really good defense, but the one spot where they allow fantasy points is to the wide receivers. So almost 40 points per game here to the wide receiver room. I really like T. Higgins. He's a fun player to watch. I think he just caught his first career touchdown the week before the bye. So it could be a pretty good spot for T. Higgins here. And if you think about how the Bengals are going to move the ball against the Steelers, I mean, they're probably not going to be able to run the ball very well. We might see Joe Burrow attempt upwards of 40, 45 passes in this one. And I don't know. It just looks like the Steelers pretty good against everything else, but the receiver points, you can pass on the Steelers here. So maybe T. Higgins keeps things rolling. He's been over double digits for like 6 or 7 games now. So I really like what T. Higgins can do. And then let's look at the Broncos here because Jerry Jeudy, he just had his career best game last week. So where are you, Judy? Going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. I do have Judy listed as a wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 3 here. The Raiders allowing about 37 points per game to the tight end or to the wide receivers here. Let's just check the practice reports real quick because I noticed I don't think he practiced the other day. So Jerry Judy, where are you? So he didn't practice on Wednesday. He gets limited in today. He's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury. So I'm a big fan of Jerry Judy. He's been getting the targets lately, which we love to see. He ended up with, so he had 10 the week before, 14 last week. So the man's getting a lot of touches, and he just had a breakout game. So I think if Jerry Judy is going to be good to go, I think I like Jerry Judy the most. He's probably going to be the safest just because he's getting the targets. And we don't really like the Raiders defense that much. So I think I would rate them basically Judy, Higgins, and then I'm probably not dealing with Justin Jefferson at all. But I mean, Judy, Higgins, I really don't think you can go wrong. I like both guys quite a bit there. So thank you for your question, Jenna. We're going to get back to the start-sit charts here. I think I pretty much just covered up the Packers, Jaguars. If you guys have any more questions on this game, but I think it's going to be a pretty simple start your Packers kind of day, and then just basically leave James Robinson in the lineups. Let's move on to the Eagles and the New York Giants here. Before I get to the fantasy points allowed here, let's just look at the practice reports real quick. On the Philadelphia side here, Miles Sanders got a full practice in today, so he's going to play, guys. That's a really good sign there. If you're holding on to Boston Scott, not really sure he's got any value in this one. It's going to be the Miles Sanders show again. And then the other big development in the practice reports here is Alshon Jeffrey is set to make his season debut. So if you needed some extra boost at receiver, got an open bench spot, you can probably snag just Alshon Jeffrey and see what happens this weekend. But it looks like he's going to be good to go. So otherwise, it's been a long time since we've seen the full healthy wide receiver group for the Philadelphia Eagles. So this could actually be a really sneaky game for Carson Wentz on the offensive side of the ball here. And then looking at the New York Giants, Devonta Freeman, he's back. Limited practice today and yesterday, coming back from that ankle injury. We see Sterling Shepard here with the turf toe, limited. He's kind of been limited like the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're kind of just taking it easy with him. I'm expecting him to play pretty well. He's gotten 3 straight games of double digits. He did catch a touchdown against the Eagles back in week like 7 or 8, or was it? And then Golden Tate, we don't really care about Golden Tate. But otherwise, let's look over at the fantasy points allowed here. So the Eagles, they have a pretty decent defense. The one spot where you can get them is against tight ends. They are 29th in the league here, about 16.7 PPR points to the tight ends. Places to target the Giants, 25.4 points to the running backs. And then they got over 40 points per game here to the wide receivers. So how do we attack this? I think Carson Wentz, it's his first game with a full healthy set of options to use the ball. So I think Carson Wentz is a quarterback 1. Miles Sanders, I'm going to remove the question mark since he practiced in full. He's back into our lineups as a running back 1 or 2. And then you got Travis Fulgham, who I think at this point, man, you just set it and forget it. He's a wide receiver 3 with some upside there. We do love Dallas Goedert being back. I don't know when Zach Ertz is going to be back, maybe next week or the week after that. But for now, continue starting Dallas Goedert. We might be able to get a top 5 tight end out of him this week. We did like what we saw out of Jalen Reagor before the bye week. I think he could be used as a low-end wide receiver 3 flex. I'm not starting Alshon Jeffrey this week. I want to see what the snap counts and what his production looks like, how many targets and stuff like that. So I think we're leaving Greg Ward, Jeffrey, Boston Scott, Richard Rodgers. All those guys can be on the bench. But I'm just really excited to watch what Carson Wentz can do now that he's got Sanders, Goddard, Reagor, Fulgham. It should be a pretty good day for the Philadelphia side of the ball there. And then on the Giants side here, Daniel Jones, if you guys remember on that Thursday night, that he just tore off for like for what was it, like a 80-yard run, then he just kind of falls to the ground. That was basically the play that made his day usable. It was probably his best fantasy output of the season. So maybe Daniel Jones is startable in a quarterback 2 superflex league. I don't trust any of the running backs. Now that Devonta Freeman is kind of coming back into the mix here, is it Freeman? Is it Gallman? Is it Deion Lewis? Is it Alfred Morris? I think I'm just staying away. I'm probably going to move Wayne Gallman even down here to the bench. I'm not going to recommend a Giants running back, but the Giants that I will recommend is going to be Sterling Shepard. He's had 3 straight games of double-digit PPR points. Evan Ingram looked great last week, caught the touchdown. And like we said here, the Eagles do allow tight end points, so this could be another pretty good outing for Evan Ingram. And then Darius Slayton here, I do have him with a question mark. He did not have a great game against the Eagles back in Week 7. Darius Slay kind of took care of him, so I'm not really sure. He's a very risky flex play at best. I'm probably going to move him to the bench here. So really, the only Giants I think I feel comfortable starting are going to be Daniel Jones in a super flex league, and that's a maybe. Sterling Shepard I think can be a wide receiver 3. Evan Ingram can continue to be your tight end 1. So I think I like that for the Giants Eagles side there. And then I think this is the last. Yep, this is the last noon game of the group here. So Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey's already been ruled out, but they're saying some good things. We might see McCaffrey come back next week. So hopefully you snag Mike Davis. If not, Mike Davis is going to be the man this week. I'm wondering actually if we can. Yeah, let's start with this. The fantasy points allowed here. So the Buccaneers, their defense is pretty solid. We know this. That it's last weekend was kind of like a mirage. I don't think we're going to see them play that poorly again this year. But they're pretty good against quarterbacks, 15.5 points. Pretty good against running backs, just under 23 points. And into the receiver spot, about 34.5 points. They can be had against tight ends, about 13.5 there, but the Panthers don't really use their tight end Ian Thomas at all. On the Panthers side of things, just about 18 points per game to the quarterback. They are a pretty funnel defense here against the running back points, almost 29 points per game here. So I do like Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones in this one. Panthers are solid against the receivers, decent against tight ends here. So it's actually a pretty tough matchup. And I guess since these two teams have already played, I'm going to pull up the Buccaneers, I guess, the game log from this game here. So let's just go to ESPN and pull this up. This will be the last game that I'm covering. I'll probably hang out. What time is it? About 6:30. I can hang on for another 15, 20 minutes if you guys got questions in the chat room. But we're talking Bucs-Panthers here. This is the last game of the noon slate. And these two teams have already played each other this year. So Tampa Bay won 31-17. If you don't remember, this was the big Leonard Fournette debut. He rushed 12 times, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. He busted that long one for like 50 yards. So you like Leonard Fournette in this one. I also like Ronald Jones. If you remember back here, Ronald Jones did score a touchdown himself. And I still think Ronald Jones is the goal line back. So I think both guys can be usable. You see Tom Brady, 23 for 35, 217 yards, 1 touchdown. Not a very great day. I'm expecting a little bit more of a bounce back here. Chris Godwin did not play in this one, so that was the main difference here. I do think we should expect Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown to all kind of have a nice game. And then on the Panthers side of things, Teddy Bridgewater, 33 of 42, 367 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So it was kind of a frustrating day. They did decide to run their 2 touchdowns in with Christian McCaffrey. So I would imagine, if Teddy Bridgewater gets that same production and gets a touchdown on the board, you're going to like what you get out of Teddy. And then McCaffrey, we're going to just plug in Mike Davis there. And then look at the receivers here. DJ Moore, 8 for 120. Robbie Anderson, 9 for 109. And then Curtis Samuel is kind of the odd man out here. So I'm not really sure we're going to see this awesome, for DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. It's going to probably be a mix between all 3 guys. But I do like all 3 wide receivers. There should be a lot of fantasy points in this one to go around. So how do we navigate this with the start-sit charts? I still think Tom Brady's a quarterback 1. I really want to see what this offense can do with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and the running backs. I do have Ronald Jones ranked higher than Leonard Fournette just because he's the starter. When they get out there on the field, he's the first running back in. They're going to give him his touches right away. And basically Leonard Fournette comes into the game when they are needing to throw the ball and when they're in the 2-minute offense. And if we think the Buccaneers can control this game, that might keep Ronald Jones in the mix a little bit longer than what we've been seeing the last couple games here. So I like Ronald Jones as a low-end RB2 flex. You can probably list Leonard Fournette in the same category. In a PPR league, I'm fine with him being an RB2, but he's still kind of an RB2 flex title. And then the receivers here, Mike Evans, continue starting Chris Godwin, and then Antonio Brown. What do you do with Antonio Brown? If you guys have questions on like, should I start this guy over Antonio Brown, or do I get Antonio Brown in over this guy? I'm willing to help answer some of those questions. I think Antonio Brown, he looked pretty good last weekend. I thought there was still some communication errors with Tom Brady that didn't really sit well with him. But you see, Antonio Brown had a lot of snaps. He had 5 or 6 targets. And let's just pull that up here. So Tampa Bay. So Antonio Brown, 78% of snap shares. That's a great number for his first game back. 5 targets, 3 for 31. This is probably going to be his worst game of the season. So I would expect him maybe to have that by halftime this time. So I do like Antonio Brown, Evans, and Godwin. Rob Gronkowski, if you need to start a tight end here, what did he do last time? Well, I guess this was still an OJ Howard game, so it was just kind of like a weird situation with the snaps and stuff. So I do think Rob Gronkowski can be used as a low-end tight end one. You can continue starting the Bucs defense if you don't have a better option. If you have questions on that, you can hit me up on Twitter or the YouTube comment below, and I'll get back to you on who I might be interested in over the Bucs. Scott Miller, Cameron Brate, Tyler Johnson, not really interested there. On the Panthers side, we did say Christian McCaffrey is out. So Mike Davis gets plugged into your RB2, RB1 spot. Teddy Bridgewater, very serviceable as a quarterback too. He might even be a decent quarterback one streaming option this week. I do love, you got to get Robbie Anderson in. I think you got to continue to go to the well with DJ Moore. This was DJ Moore's best game of the season back in week 2 against Tampa Bay. Again, he had 8 catches for 120 yards. He led the team with 13 targets. So we might see DJ Moore kind of get back more into his more familiar high target, high reception totals here. And Curtis Samuel, Tampa Bay's defense needs to focus on Curtis Samuel. So that's why I'm thinking maybe a little bit more loose coverage for Robbie and DJ Moore. But if you do have Curtis Samuel, I'm open to using Curtis as a wide receiver 3. He scored touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's just been on a tear lately, so you gotta play the hot hand, I think, with Curtis. So we're not starting the Panthers defense. No Ian Thomas. It's a pretty simple fantasy evaluation there on the Panthers side. Should be a really fun game. And then that brings us to our afternoon game. So I think I'm going to save these for tomorrow. We do have a handful of noon games. We got 6 games in the afternoon. So this is a really fun slate, I think. If anyone has any questions in the chat room, I'm willing to answer them. Any start sits for tonight. Otherwise, I'm going to hop over to let's just go over to the news, the Roto World news, and let's kind of get caught up on things. But we're going on about 37 minutes here. I'll probably hang on another 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions, fire them away in the chat room, please. And we're just going to kind of walk down the news feed here. So we already know Sterling Shepard limited at practice. Titans cornerback Adoree Jackson not playing tonight. Mo Ali Cox is active tonight, so we like Mo Ali and Trey Burton as potential tight end 1 streamers. A bit of a bummer here for the 49ers defense. Jaquiski, I don't know how to say his first name, but Tart is probably not coming back this year due to turf toe. Got K'Wan Williams here going up on injury reserve as well with a high ankle sprain. Deebo Samuel gets a limited day in. Tevin Coleman limited. Or actually, he did not practice today. This is an interesting one that I saw a little bit ago. Carlton Davis for Tampa Bay. He missed practice today with a little sore. He didn't say where he was sore. The knee was sore. So we'll monitor this. This is Tampa Bay's best corner. If he can't play, we're going to like Teddy Bridgewater a little bit more. Michael Thomas limited today. Joey Bosa limited at practice with a concussion symptom. Let's see here. Drew Brees limited. Justin Jackson. I don't think Justin Jackson's playing this weekend, so we'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow after I see the reports. But Troy Maine Pope, Kalen Ballage, Josh Kelly. It's going to be a mess for the Chargers backfield this weekend. We talked about Laviska Shenault earlier. We talked a little bit about Jerry Jeudy in this program before, but Tim Patrick limited today. Noah Fant got a full practice in. And then I believe Jerry Jeudy got a limited day in for practice. Today he was limited with shoulder soreness. I can't remember when he got hit and when it really bothered him, but he was able to finish the game last weekend, so I'm assuming they're just being cautious with him, and he should play this weekend. Matt Stafford's going to play for sure. Hopefully Kenny Galladay can make it. If not this week, maybe next weekend. We did talk about Kenyon Drake a little bit here at the top. He got another limited day in. If he gets another limited day in tomorrow, I'm probably not going to like Chase Edmonds for this weekend, just because it's probably going to be jumbled up in the snap counts. And I don't know. It's not the easiest matchup, but I do think if Kenyon Drake can't go, Chase Edmonds is going to be your guy. BJ Chark not playing and not practicing with an illness. We got John Brown returning here to practice. I think he's just been kind of getting Wednesdays off. Yeah, they just say it's a maintenance day. But man, John Brown looked great last weekend. He's going to be a wide receiver 3 flex for me tomorrow when I talk about that. Allen Robinson limited with a knee issue. We talked about Tanyan. We talked about David Bakhtiari. No David Montgomery yet. So I think this was the first. Today's Thursday. today was the first day that the Bears actually, get together and put out a practice report. So they do have practices Friday and Saturday because they play Monday night. So we have to watch those closely to see if we need to be looking for Ryan Nall or Lamar Miller or Cordero Patterson. I really don't know how to evaluate that Bears backfield. Mark Ingram, this is a weird one because Mark Ingram practiced yesterday in a limited capacity. And then all of a sudden today, he did not practice, which is not a good sign. That's going the wrong direction that you want. So if Mark Ingram's not going to play, we're going to like Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So we're going to let that brew and see what happens tomorrow before I talk about that. No T.J. Hawkinson today. So this one, I caught this morning. I forgot about this. But if he can't practice tomorrow, it says we'll see what happens. But I'm assuming he can practice tomorrow. If not, we're going to be pivoting here. And if Hawkinson can't play, I'm taking away all my lines pretty much off the board. I don't think it's going to be a pretty good game for Detroit. Cooper Kupp, wrist oblique. He's on track to play. Stephon Gilmore did not practice today. He got eliminated in yesterday. So, again, he's downgrading here to did not practice today. So we'll keep an eye on that for tomorrow. Darrell Henderson, they basically said he's going to play. He got a limited practice in today going up against the Seahawks. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's been not practicing all Wednesdays, basically the whole year. Thursday, nothing really new here. He's back at it. Nick Chubb back at practice. I think that's pretty much it. Like my guy Andrew said in the chat room, Alan Lazard could play Week 10. We'll probably see him activated tomorrow if he does play. No Joe Mixon yet at practice, so it looks like Giovanni Bernard, man, might have another week for us as a RB2 flex. It's a tough matchup. We know the Steelers don't give up running back points, and we know Gio Bernard's probably not going to run against that stout defensive front of the Steelers, so maybe it's a big PPR day for Joe Mixon or for Gio Bernard. And then, I don't know, that's pretty much it, I think. We kind of covered it for the most part with everything else that we got going on here. The Ravens did have a player test positive for COVID, so we'll kind of keep that situation in the back of our minds. But we're going on just about 42 minutes of total runtime here. We got a football game on tonight. Colts at the Tennessee Titans. This one's basically for first place in the AFC South. It should be a really good game. If you need any start-sit advice, you can follow me on Twitter at @thefellowKGB. That's the best place to ask me questions. Otherwise, the YouTube comments, we have a Facebook. We got thefantasyfellowship.com. You can check us out there. But yeah, that's going to do it for this evening. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks for hanging out in the chat room, asking questions. I will be going live tomorrow evening as well, Friday at 6 p.m. We're going to be covering the remainder of the games that I have not covered yet. That's going to be 6 3 o'clock games and the Sunday night football game and the Monday night football game. So a lot to get to tomorrow evening. We got a fun game on our hands tonight, so enjoy the rest of your evening. Let me know if you have questions. But again, thank you so much for your time. I will see you in another video. Peace.